Most politicians get into trouble every once in a while. You know, it's part of the job. A little illegal campaign contribution, a little sex scandal, a little storming the Capitol. You know, trivial stuff we've all come to accept. But in the past few weeks, one member of Congress has been collecting scandals like Steve Harvey collects those pinstripe suits. So, let's check in on what this politician has been getting up to in another installment of Fringe-Watching. Right now, the reigning scandal champion in Washington is none other than Madison Cawthorn, congressman from North Carolina, and what lacrosse would look like if it were a person. From the moment he showed up on the political scene 2 years ago, Cawthorn has always been a controversial figure. Right? First, he faced sexual harassment allegations from his time in college, and then he was caught lying about getting into the Naval Academy. And then he got in trouble for gleefully posting on Instagram about his visit to Hitler's mountain retreat, or as he called it, the vacation house of the Führer. Yeah, which is weird. I mean, we don't need to be referring to Hitler by his nickname. Like, I called Jay-Z Hova, right? But I probably wouldn't do that anymore if he committed genocide, you know? And now, by the way, this was all before Cawthorn even got into Congress. Yeah, since he's taken the oath of office, his scandals have definitely not slowed down. Most recently, you probably heard that he made headlines by claiming that other members of Congress had done cocaine in front of him and invited him to orgies. Which, first of all, snitch. And second of all, the whole thing was a lie. Of course, it's not true. These people are in Congress. They're not throwing an orgy. That's way too complicated for them. They'd have to secure funding for the sex toys first. They'd have to agree on a time and a location. They'd have a committee to debate about the rules. Is kissing allowed? Can you do butt stuff? And then at the last minute, Joe Manchin would show up and object, and everyone would have to put their dicks back in their pants. Nah. Those coke orgy stories, that's in the distant past. That happened way low, like 3 weeks ago. Nobody's even talking about that anymore because Cawthorn is getting into new trouble every damn day, starting with some really bad driving.
Newly released video shows Congressman Madison Cawthorn getting his license revoked during a traffic stop in Cleveland County.
The traffic stop came after the truck crossed the center line. As the trooper approaches, Cawthorn's informed that his license plate tag is expired. The trooper discovered Cawthorn's driver's license had been revoked due to an out-of-state ticket.
Yeah, first Madison Cawthorn was pulled over for swerving. Then the cops found out that he had an expired license plate. And then he was busted for having a revoked driver's license. I mean, those are Hall of Fame numbers right there. I don't even think OJ broke that many laws during his cop chase. And what's crazy is that this is the second time that he's been busted for driving with a revoked license. At this point, he's probably the only member of Congress who might show up to work with an ID that says McLovin. He's like, that's me, that's real. But if I'm honest, I can see why. Of course he's got to drive with a revoked license. Do you know how embarrassing it must be when he needs to ask his mom to drive him to the orgy? You know, it's just like, Mom, don't drop me off in front of the mansion. Just leave me at the corner. She's like, okay, love you. Make sure you have enough cocaine for everybody. So yes, Madison Cawthorn is not allowed to drive himself anywhere right now. But before you think of giving him a lift to the airport, you might want to be careful when you're throwing his bags in the trunk.
U.S. Republican Congressman Madison Cawthorn was cited by police on Tuesday after they found a loaded handgun in his bag at a North Carolina airport. TSA agents found a 9mm handgun when Cawthorn passed through a security checkpoint. Police say he was cooperative and cited for possession of a dangerous weapon on city property. It is the second time in just over a year the young congressman has been stopped for carrying a gun at an airport.
Before you judge, who hasn't made this mistake, huh? The Uber's waiting outside. You're trying to pack your bags real quick. You throw in your cologne, your underwear, your AK-47. What am I doing? You can't take cologne on a plane. The craziest part about the story is that's the second time he got caught trying to bring a gun onto a plane in a year. I get if you made this mistake like 15 years ago. But twice in 1 year? Why are you so invested in getting a gun on a plane? Huh? How intense is the battle for your armrest, my man? What are you doing? And before you ask, yes, the congressman was punished. He was given a citation. which I know sounds like something they give you for having the biggest watermelon at the country fair, but this will hurt him. His life will be the same. You know, in a way, I respect him. A lot of Republicans talk about being pro-police, but he's the only one out here personally keeping all of these police departments in business. I respect that. So Cawthorn got caught driving without a license, and then he got caught trying to bring weapons onto a plane. And most people would take a breather after that, but not Madison Cawthorn, no. Because the same day the news broke about the gun, he was accused of taking part in a cryptocurrency insider trading scheme. Yeah, I know. I was also shocked to hear that this guy was into crypto. Who would have thought? So now we got suspended licenses, guns at airports, possible insider trading, basically 3 stars on GTA. And guess what, my friends? Madison Cawthorn even has scandals that expose his character as a scam. And in order to understand this next scandal properly, first, you need to know that Madison Cawthorn has been saying certain things on the campaign trail about what it means to be a man.
Our culture today is trying to completely demasculate all of the young men in our culture.
We have bred a generation of soft men, and that generation has created a lot of problems in our society and our culture.
If you want me to sit here and call a man a woman, you are asking me to buy into this lie. And I'll say no to that. Your left-wing movement is forcing children to endure radical expressions of sexuality. And I never imagined that one of my sacred duties in this hallowed chamber would be explaining to the House Speaker the difference between a man and a woman. You'll never amend biology. Science is not Burger King. You can't just have it your way.
That's an interesting way to put it. I like how Cawthorn is working some product placement into his floor speeches. Gender is simple. Men are like Arby's. We have the meat. But yes, Madison Cawthorn has been talking a big game about defending traditional conservative notions of masculinity and gender, selling himself as the icon of traditional Christian manhood, which this country has lost. So you can imagine how awkward it was for him to try and explain this.
New tonight, North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn responding to photos circulating online that show him wearing women's lingerie. Cawthorn said on Twitter that these images were first reported by Politico and came from a game he played during a cruise. The North Carolina Congressman says the photos were taken long before he ran for office.
Well, well, well. Check out Madison over here. What game were you playing? I'm gonna put on this lingerie and look good doing it, huh? You said you were a good Christian soldier. Looks more like a good Christian Louboutin soldier, huh? Now, I wanna be clear. A man wearing lingerie isn't a scandal, right? It isn't a scandal in any way. Men can wear whatever they want to wear. But this particular man, he spends a lot of time attacking other people for how they dress, how they identify, and what their values are. All I'm saying is the next time gender issues come up again, this dude better not get his panties in a bunch. That's all I'm saying, you know? So that's what Madison Cawthorn has been up to for the past month. Yeah. And nobody knows if any of these scandals will end up hurting Cawthorn in the upcoming election, but what we do know is his mom's definitely going to need to drop him off on election day.